We good?
If I say anything else,
we're going live. What are we? Last week, second last week of August, right? Hey guys, how you doing? Coming at you again from South Melbourne, Wealth for Life. Anthony Peluso here, CEO and founder. Hey guys, how you doing? Coming at you again from South Melbourne. Got a lot of questions. And we've got some feedback going on in the background there, which is interesting. Got a lot of questions from our Facebook Lives over the last few weeks, which I'll attempt to get through today. Won't be able to answer all the questions, but really appreciate those of you that keep sending them in. And again, if you can share this stream, it'd be really appreciated. I've got a really cool giveaway to everybody that shares the stream. One of the questions, and we get this quite a bit, is how much do I need to get started? And again, it's a bit of an open-ended question because it's kind of the way the market's going at the moment. The longer you leave it, the more you're going to need to actually get into the market. But I think the best way to answer that question is to have a look at some case studies from some of our clients. Put it this way, your traditional way to get into the market, you're going to need some form of deposit. Okay, so that's the portion of your money that you need to get into the market. Now, whether that be in form of savings or cash, whether that be in the form of equity, meaning the value of your home, as an example, minus the loan on you or the debt on your home, that portion in the middle. You can use that as your deposit, but you're going to need, for an average home in Melbourne, let's say, for $600,000, you're going to need anywhere from, $30,000 being a 5% deposit to $120,000, okay, depending on the kind of finance you actually get for the investment. So that's your upfront contribution, and there's things like stamp duty. And purchasing costs such as conveyancing. So in terms of deposits, now there's ways that you can there's ways that you can do that, and we'd love to have a chat to you in terms of how you can structure that, because the reality is a lot of people, especially in this country, we're not a country that does very well when it comes to saving. Okay, if I ask you guys the question, who's got on a $600,000 purchase, as an example, who has $120,000 sitting in there in cash, in savings, that they're going to use for a deposit? Plus, by the time you factor in your stamp duty of, say, another $30,000, $40,000, you're looking at $160,000 just to get into the market. Okay, so there are more creative ways to do that. And again, give us a call on 1300 793 877 or shoot us an email. And we're more than happy to have a chat to you regarding that, because there are other ways you can do it. But think of it like this: the way that most people actually look at an investment property, and there's nothing wrong with it, is that they take the rent that comes in, and then they subtract the interest on the loan and the expenses to run the property. And if there's more rent than expenses, they usually make a decision based on that. There's nothing wrong with that viewpoint. In fact, that's probably the best way to do it. The reality is that properties, you have a lot of advantages with regards to property. There's a lot of government incentives that you're able to qualify for and receive. So it's a little bit more than just looking at your position pre-tax. Okay, so your pre-tax position is just nothing more than rent coming in minus expenses. And by property expenses, I mean property management fees, council rates, water rates, building insurance, things that you need to pay to run the property. And then you've got the big ticket item, which is the interest on the mortgage. So a lot of people will do the math purely based on that. Now, that's your pre-tax position. For a lot of you that I'm sure would know, there's our government introduced, I think back in September 1986, where you're able to get a tax deduction or any loss you incur on a property from a pre-tax position, you're able to claim off your taxable income. Okay, so if you calculate that, your pre-tax and your post-tax position, it's not uncommon for you to be out of pocket as little as $10, $15 a week. If you structure your finances correctly and your purchasing entity correctly, and by purchasing entity I mean the people that are buying the property, whether it's husband and wife, individuals, joint tenants, tenants in common, trust structure, self-managed super fund, corporation. If you get that entity correct and you get your finances structured correctly, you know, the bottom line is you run 12 months and you sit down and you look at it and say, well, how much money came out of my pocket to hold on to this property, to run this property? And it can be as little as $10, $15 a week out of pocket. Now, think about it. You know, I put a post up a couple of weeks ago on my Facebook page titled "The Cost of Your Weekends," just to put things into perspective a little bit, right? You know, think about it, right? You finish up on a Friday night at work, you come back Monday morning, right? What do you do over the weekends? How do you spend your money over the weekends, right? Think of it like in terms of, you know, maybe going out, having a few drinks, getting an Uber there and back, you know, enjoying yourself, some tickets to maybe to the movies or to a show. You're probably going to be down $100 over that weekend, okay? It's not uncommon for, you know, get some breakfast or some dinner, some lunch, and you're down $100 if you're lucky, okay? Now, multiply that over 52 weeks. That's $5,200 that you would spend just to run your weekends, right? If you understand how property works and looking back at the example I gave earlier on, $5,200 invested in the right property 2 years ago, based on what the property market's done, would have made you $58,000 today. And that's in the form of equity. That's your money, right? Now, I won't take into account things like selling costs, and this assumes that you dispose of the asset, obviously, but I won't take into account selling costs, capital gains tax, and so forth. But look at how you spend your money, right? You spend $5,200 a year on something you're probably going to have no recollection over. You've got nothing to really show for it, right? Other than maybe a hangover every weekend, compared to what you could do with that money if you put it elsewhere. Okay? Now, I suppose that the perception out in the marketplace that we see, usually from people who haven't done this before, is that it costs too much to get into the property market. I need to have too much up front, and it's going to cost me too much to run my property portfolio. That's really not the case, okay? You can get into property from as little as, like I said before, $10, $15, $30 a week. And based on the example I just showed you, you're spending more than that. And let's face it, probably a hell of a lot more than that just on the weekend. So come and have a talk to us, and we can certainly take you through an example. But it's a question that stops a lot of people. They'll only look at it from one viewpoint, and you know, it's their pre-tax position, but not really what it's going to cost them in hard money out of pocket at the end of the year. Another question I had was, what do you recommend to people to start investing in property? Okay, I think I've covered that one off. Talk about my own property purchasing experience. Okay. Well, as I think I've mentioned before, I've been investing in property for now almost 18, 19 years. And you know, one of the things I did was, funny thing, like I had the same, I was apprehensive and had the same fear that most people do. I didn't understand the property market. I had no idea about the property market pre-2000. So all I did was just educate myself. I'll tell you a funny story. I hope he's listening. A friend of mine who told me about this. This is an interesting story, and it opened my eyes to real estate. I remember catching up with my buddy in Doncaster Shopping Centre. I think this was back in 1999. Okay, for those of you tuning in that were alive back then. Funny thing is, we caught up for coffee. You know, coffee always leads to a good story, right? And we were just shooting the breeze, and I asked him, "So, what did you do? How was your week? How was your week at work?" And he said, "Oh yeah, really cool. I bought a property." And I thought, okay, now remember, I knew nothing about real estate at this point, okay? Totally oblivious to it. Other than having your own home, I really had no understanding of real estate investment or how any of this stuff works. And I'm like, yeah, cool, okay, you bought your own investment property. Nice. Didn't really ask too many questions because I really didn't know what to ask. Week goes by, we catch up for coffee again on a Saturday morning. I said, hey Ross, tell me, how was your week? Yeah, good. No, I bought another property. And I'm like, okay. So, in addition to the one you bought the week before? Yeah. Okay. I'm like, now, I'm intrigued at this point. How does a guy buy two properties in 2 weeks, right? And again, like, I didn't even know what questions to ask. And I'm starting to think at this point, is this actually legal? So we kind of just continued talking, but at this point, I was curious, okay? And we catch up a week later, same place, same time. Just as friends, having a chat. Hey Ross, how was your week? Yeah, good. You guessed it. He bought another property. And at this point, I'm like, okay, enough. What are you doing? Was my reaction. What are you doing? And one, is it legal? And this is when he sat down and started educating me about investing in real estate and how to use equity and things like leverage to get into the property market. And I'm like, how does a guy buy 3 properties in 3 weeks? So we sat down and he pen and paper on, I think, some butcher's paper, and he's just showing me how the math around doing something like this. And he had a couple of guys, come around to his place, knock on his door, and sit down and show him this as well. So, of course, I got in touch with those guys. Really awesome guys. They came around to my place. My dad had to be there because he didn't trust anyone. He wanted to make sure his boy was getting looked after, not getting ripped off. I get that, right? And really cool guys, super educated. And by the end of the night, I'd bought this beautiful 2-bedroom or 1.5-bedroom apartment in Fitzroy Street, St Kilda. Not going to lie to you, I had no idea what I was doing. Dad was there. He just made sure that all the paperwork was correct and the numbers added up, and I got a little bit educated on that night. And I'm signing away contracts. There was an awesome guy from NAB, a mobile lender at the time, who unfortunately I've since found out is no longer with us. Just a brilliant guy. And by the end of the night, I'd signed up for a property in Fitzroy Street, St Kilda. Me and my 2 brothers. Dad helped me out with equity. And heaven behold, a couple of weeks later, I'd settled on this property. I had a property manager that was assigned to the property. It all happened so quickly. And, I thank my dad and I thank Ross for the lessons he taught me and for introducing me to these 2 guys that came to my house. And Dad for, holding my hand and making sure his boy, was getting looked after. And then I took it upon myself to get educated because I found out something very, very important. The amount of money you could make in real estate was ridiculous compared to what I was earning at the time. And I was working in telecommunications industry, earning a decent income back then, but it was nothing compared to what you could earn from real estate. And it was this that really got my attention. It's like, wow, people can make this kind of money from buying into real estate. And my first points of contacts were to set myself up with a really good accountant who could verify all of this for me, and a really good solicitor who again could make sure all of this was legal and there was nothing untoward. And God bless them, I've still got those people on my team today. But that's when I understood the power of leverage and compound interest. Earning money on top of money on top of money, making money while you sleep. Because let me tell you something, if you don't learn to make money while you sleep, you're going to work till you die. That much I know, okay? And then leverage, which is, again, taking a little bit of your own money and attracting the big portion of the money from the banks. And that was that was amazing what I did with that property, and you know, that property alone tripled in value in the space of 10 years. So for those of you out there that think that apartments don't grow in value, not true. Okay, I purchased that for $225,500. Settled on it in February 2000. Had it valued on Grand Final Day 2010. For you Melburnians that follow the AFL and as crazy about the AFL as I was, it was actually that drawn Grand Final Day, Collingwood and St Kilda, hence why I remember. Had the property valued at that time for something like $590. Yeah, $590, $595. So, you know, pretty much almost tripled in value over a 10-year period. But the most important lesson I learned from that was how to duplicate that. And if you want to really accelerate your property investment strategy, you've got to learn to build a system. Okay, you can't have a different approach to every transaction, because the reality is every transaction should be faster, more easier, leave you in a better position. And it really is all about building a system. So I've developed a purchasing strategy, so a set of rules that I would always use to purchase property. So I'd have to meet certain criteria. I developed a lending system, so the type of lending that I would get, the types of properties I would buy, an exit strategy. So it got to a point where, you know, over a 3-month period, I ended up buying 7 properties. And that's not to brag or show off or anything like that, because believe me, my wife wanted to kill me. When she saw the loan statements come in from the bank, I remember sitting down in our lounge room by the fireplace, and she pulls out these bank statements from NAB. She's like, you want to explain to me how we all of a sudden have $3 million of debt in the space of 3 months? And that's where you need to be a good salesman, okay, with your wife. But no, the truth of the matter is, build a system. If you want to really accelerate your property portfolio or your wealth creation strategy, you have to build a system. So something that can continue to work, and preferably continue to work without you, okay? So there's no guesswork involved, that follows the same steps every time. Now, it's not to say you don't alternate or you know, you have to tweak your strategy, because things like lending and lending criteria changes, so you've got to change or better still, be a step ahead. But build a system, because then you can start to acquire property in a way that doesn't require you to think too much. And when I say that, I mean, you know, you just follow a formula. Okay, you follow a pattern, a proven, tested pattern, and it does work. So all I've done for, I think it was Steve that asked that question, my own property purchasing experience, I've just built a system. Okay, we'll share one thing with you, right? It has absolutely nothing to do with whether you're buying townhouses, apartments, houses, or any of that. Okay, I've bought all of that stuff. I've bought in multiple states of Australia. I've bought apartments, units, townhouses, villas, holiday accommodation. I've built, I've constructed, I've done a ton of renovations, which is so much fun. Developed my own property. So I hold all types of different properties in different locations, and I can tell you it's got nothing to do with the type of property you buy. It has very, very little say in how well it performs. That's only my experience, by the way, okay? It doesn't mean that it's the same experience for other people out there that have followed a similar system to purchasing property. But my experience and my portfolio, the type of properties that I've purchased have had very little say on their performance, okay? There's other factors that come into play, which are far, far more important. So learn to build a system, because a system will take the guesswork out of it, the anxiety out of it, the stress out of it, and you know that all it's got to do is follow a certain pattern, and you get a predictable outcome. And that's what you're looking for in property. You don't want to get surprises down the track or anyway or throughout the purchasing process, right? You want to make sure that you get a predictable outcome. So there's no guesswork when it comes to building wealth. What other questions do we have? Courtney Jade, at 23 years old, with little savings, what would you recommend? Okay, Courtney, thanks for that question. Listen, define little savings, I suppose. I need to sit down with you, Courtney, and have a look. If we're talking about, $10,000, $15,000, like I said, you've got to think a little bit outside the square in terms of how you get into the market, because, how we've been conditioned, how my parents conditioned me, and how our schooling system and out there in the market, how we're conditioned that you've got to have a 10, 20% deposit, okay? That's fine, and I get that, but the reality is very few people in Australia have that. And if that's the only criteria you use to determine whether you get into the market or not, you'll be waiting a long time to get into the market. And the sad fact is that there's no way that we're saving as fast as our market is increasing in value, okay? Just because of the way our system's designed, where we earn an income, have to pay tax, handle expenses, and save what's left, the reality is there just isn't enough money left over to save. And then we need to build that up to put towards a deposit. That's all cool, but the market is continuing to increase in value and appreciate. So you're going to find that the longer you leave it, the further behind you're going to be, and the harder it is, because the more money you're going to have to save. And it just becomes one of these things where, it reminds me of the Tom and Jerry, right? You kind of, the cat never really ends up catching the mouse. And it's kind of the way with the property market. You need to find some creative ways to get into the market that don't stretch you financially and don't put you under any financial duress. And let me tell you guys something. We take that very, very seriously here. None of our clients have got hurt financially from taking our advice, because the risk mitigation strategy we use is pretty amazing. Okay, we don't stretch anyone financially. There's plenty of wiggle room and buffer room to make sure that interest rates go up, rents drop, you lose an income, or you drop in pay, that you're still going to be able to hold on to your real estate portfolio. So, Courtney, give us a call, come and have a chat to us. I'd need to understand a little bit more about your situation, but doing something with maybe a family member or a very good friend. I've bought multiple properties where I didn't have deposits, I didn't have enough saved, but I found really cool friends, people I could depend on, where we went together and bought the properties together. So I found where I was weak and where somebody else was strong, and I just matched my weakness with their strengths and vice versa, and we got into the property market. Now, just be careful when adopting a strategy like that, because you need to know the people that you're investing with very, very, very well. And there's a couple of things you need to take into consideration. So please don't just go out there and grab somebody off the street, or or your BFF and start something like this. You come and have a chat to us, because there's some things you need to take into consideration. Again, like a purchasing strategy, how you hold on to it, and an exit strategy, because there's a lot of what if questions that we'll take you through. But you know what? It's a strategy that a lot of people are adopting today, because Courtney, it's not a lot of us have a lot of money to get into the property market. So we're getting together now with siblings or brothers and friends and family members, and where you could where you could make 100% of something, you may make 50% of something. But my rule is, it's still better to it's better to make 50% of something than 100% of nothing. So hopefully I've answered your question, Courtney, but give us a call. I'd like to sit down with you and just know a little bit more about your situation, and then we can advise accordingly the most safest and the most secure way for you to get into the market, if that's possible. Okay, what else have we got? Robert, yeah, hi Robert, Joanne, Cherie, yeah. What do you think about apartment complexes for investments with several amenities such as swimming pools and tennis courts, resulting in high body corporate? Again, I'll speak about my own experience. If we're talking purely from an investment perspective, and this is one of the first things we understand from our clients when we sit down with them. Are you buying with your head, or are you buying with your heart? Okay, buying with your heart, you're buying your own home to live in. For a lot of people, the numbers don't matter. Okay, it's all about lifestyle. It's all about the aesthetics of the property, the size of the bedrooms, the color of the floorboards. That's a lifestyle purchase. Okay, when it comes to investing, it should be purely based on numbers. You've heard it all before. Don't get emotionally attached. Right? It's one of those things where emotions destroy wealth. Intelligence is what you need. Okay, So base your purchasing decision on numbers. Now, if we're looking at numbers and buying into apartment complexes with huge body corporate, don't recommend you get into something like that. The cost of running a property like that is far outweighs the benefit. So usually those apartment buildings are very, very large in size, so there's one of many, right? And with anything in life, when there's one of many, the risks of it not performing and the risks of it, or other factors determining the outcome of your property, increase. I'm not a fan of swimming pools and tennis courts in an investment portfolio. I love tennis, I love to swim, but I don't like to pay for other people to do that. So I would steer away from high-rise, big apartment complexes that take too much to run. Okay, they're more a lifestyle thing. Certainly I'd look at buying into an apartment building that had swimming pool and tennis courts if I was living there, but certainly not as an investment. All right, I think I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. Wow, okay. Courtney, yeah, Joanne, yeah, good, okay. So guys, for those of you that haven't, if you could share this Facebook post, it means a lot to us. We really want to get our message out there. And for all of you guys that share this, I'm going to give you my ebook, The 7 Investment and Wealth Creation Laws to Live By. Pretty much all my experience and what I've done over the last 18 years has gone into that. And it's rules and laws like that have allowed me to buy property in a way that most Australians don't. And that's the thing you've got to look at. Our system right now and our lending criteria and the average salary in Australia, if you're looking to buy real estate the way we've been brought up to buy real estate, it's unfortunately not very attractive to a majority of us. Hence why so many people are going out renting. So you need to look at some creative ways to buy. And I'm not talking about schemes or scams or anything like that, but if you want, just look at the results that a lot of people in your life have. And again, I don't mean to invalidate anyone, but are you happy with the results that you or the people around you have? Only you can answer that question. If you're happy with those results, follow their advice, follow that advice, continue on that path. If you're not, it's an indication that you probably need to evaluate the knowledge that's around you and the information you're getting, and maybe look at things a little bit differently. Okay? So the old adage, if you want to be successful, study successful people, adopt the principles and the laws that they adopt, and I wouldn't say it's a guaranteed way to get there, but far better than adopting something that's not working. And we have a nice entrant here. Thanks, buddy, Steve. And you just give me a whole bunch of cupcakes that have all fallen apart.
Thursday morning.
So, so guys, we're holding a. I don't know if you guys can see that. The box.
Take one out of the box.
Take one out of the box. We're holding a workshop, a lecture, seminar, whatever you want to call it, on how can you say no to these guys? Can you see that? We're very nice. That one there is going to go on my desk. I hope my personal trainer doesn't see this. Sorry, Steve. Can't kill me, right? We're holding a seminar here on Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m. 7:30, 8 o'clock. 7:30 arrival for an 8 o'clock start in our office here in South Melbourne. Come and join us. I'm going to talk about a lot of things that I don't have time to talk about on the Facebook Live, but we've got an amazing project that we're sharing, where we want to share with you guys, where I've invested in. Stacey, Kayla, a couple of my guys here have invested in. And have a look at our video on Facebook. It's titled Lilix. It's a project we've got in South Melbourne. I've had a lot of success, and my definition of success is making money in business anyway. We had a lot of success with the suburb of South Melbourne. One, because we understand the suburb very, very well, and the factors that come into play in an area like that. We've got an amazing project that we're putting up on Thursday morning in South Melbourne that we've invested in. We've got some amazing incentives. Thank you to our developers, Spec Property. come and check it out. We're putting breakfast on us, as you can see. There's a preview. Man, these are fantastic, these cupcakes. Cake Creations by Kate. Very, very cool. How many boxes of these do we have?
I think there's like 8 of them.
8 of them. Okay. Keep them away from me. So guys, thank you again for joining us on Facebook Live. Again, if you can share this post, I'm going to flick you a copy of my ebook. Really, really cool book. Not because I wrote it, because the laws still hold true to today and have for the last 60, 70 years when it comes to building wealth. There's certain principles you need to follow. And we'd love to share them with you. So tune in again next Tuesday, midday. Keep sending your questions through. You guys ask some amazing questions. I really appreciate that. Send your questions through. I'll do my best to answer all of them. And if we can help you, please give us a call on 1300 793 877. Send us an email. We'd love to sit down with you and just have a chat to you about what's on your mind and what it is you're looking to accomplish. I promise you one thing. It doesn't matter whether you do any work with us or not, okay? That's not what it's about. I promise you one thing. You sit down with my guys, and in half an hour to an hour, I promise you, we will give you information that I guarantee will change your life, okay? Whether you do anything with it is up to you, but we will give you information that I promise you will change your life, okay? This is stuff that's not taught in schools. You're not going to pick it up in the Herald Sun or The Age on the weekend. And the most important thing here is that, all of my guys here, or a large majority of them, are investors, have done this before. They've got a proven track record. And we can just give you some key datums that you can walk away with and consider. All right? Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.